Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Taking the Lead. I'm your host, Ken Jacobs of Jacobs Consulting and Executive Coaching. And unless this is your first time, you know that on Taking the Lead, we talk to leaders in the fields of PR marketing, comms, advertising. We don't talk that much about PR, though. It's really all about leadership, that magic, that special sauce. Call it what you will. We don't call it soft skills. We don't like that because they're strategic skills. And I get to interview people who are either friends or acquaintances or people I respect. Today's is a little different. It's Fatou Barry, and the story I want to tell you is we were at a um, a conference, PRSA Tri-State conference, a couple of years back, and you ever just meet people and like we should have been friends our whole lives. Okay, let's be friends from today on. I think I'm not speaking. You can see from the reaction, I'm not speaking out of school. We just got that feeling about one another. So here we are months, and I just knew I want to have her on the podcast. She's so wise, and her energy is so delicious, and I just know you're going to enjoy our conversation. But let me tell you a little bit about her, right? She is a strategist, an equity advocate, a community builder with over a decade of experience in comms and brand development. She supports mission content brands, so she's selective, to chart a better path forward through impactful storytelling, strategic messaging, and communications design. He's worked with a number of global brands, GoPup, Samsung, WeWork, and more. And many of you know her as the founder of the PR Girl Manifesto, which is a nonprofit and industry leading platform with over 40,000 PR and marketing professionals globally. What is its mission? It works to reimagine the comms industry while supporting its constituents through access to resources, fellowship, and mentorship. I could tell you a lot more about it. I'm only going to tell you one other thing. She's the co-founder of Hold the Press. Isn't that a great name? A grassroots initiative that calls for action, accountability, and transparency in the PR industry for Black people. She serves as a board member of the Diversity Action Alliance and the Cyber Collective. I am so thrilled to welcome to the podcast Fatou Barry.
I'm so happy to be here. There's nothing like hearing your bio read back to you.
Yeah, I
You're like,
achieved
wait,
that.
that is me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. Good for you. You got to own it. You got to own it, right?
I
All
will.
right.
I
Let's
will.
jump in. We've talked so much about you and me, and let's share some of that wisdom. So, going to start with a question we ask many of our interviewees: Who are three executives inside or outside the PR industry you admire as truly effective leaders who've engaged, inspired followers, and whom you might follow?
Yeah, that's a great question. And narrowing it down is hard, but I think the first would be Bozoma St. John. A lot of people know her from her time at Netflix. She's a big executive in the Marcom space. And what I love about her is that she's unapologetically herself in every room that she enters. And I think that that's a radical kind of leadership. I love that she doesn't dilute her voice or her presence or her cultural lens. And I really do admire how she blends strategy with spirit. And I think she helps to remind me that brilliance doesn't have to come in a box, right? She's known for her work in Marcom, and she's also a real housewife now. And she's a real housewife that people like love.
Capital R, capital H.
Yes,
Right.
capital
Yeah.
R.
Yeah.
Yes. And then the second is Yvette Newell Shore. If you know me, you know I am a huge fangirl when it comes to her. I call her Miss Yvette. Miss Yvette is the longtime publicist for Beyonce, and she's also the co-founder of Shure Media Group. And I think her career is really a masterclass in behind the scenes leadership, which is something that I feel really just aligned to. I feel like she's built her credibility as a leader without dominating the spotlight. And I think sometimes a lot of people equate leadership to visibility. And what I really appreciate about her leadership style is her loyalty, how she does stuff with such emotional intelligence. And I think her ability to help tell stories that not just protect people, but like uplift the people that she represents. And I think there's such a dignity in her approach to leadership, and it's something that I try to replicate and emulate in my own work. And then third, that's a good question. Definitely Melody Hobson. Melody Hobson, she's the president and co-CEO of Ariel Investments. And I admire her a lot for her business acumen, but also how she speaks about race, power, and representation. And if you know me, you know those are things that I talk a lot about, specifically in the comms industry. And I think that she shows that you can lead with both data and heart. Um, and when I look at her and I look at her leadership style, I'm reminded that I don't have to compromise my values, right, to lead at a high level, and that you're able to bring your full self and still command respect and still be a leader that people look up to.
Yeah, I would say, when you bring that authentic self, the respect, the loyalty increases, and we have to spread that message. One message we need to spread. Speaking of Beyonce, did I ever think I'd be talking about Beyonce on the podcast? No, but so a lot of the people I coach are women. A
Yeah.
lot of them struggle with issues of confidence.
Yeah.
And I learned, I was last week old. I know that's not the right phrase. When I learned about Sasha Fierce,
Yes.
but I was told last week she created this character persona
Yeah.
because she had issues with confidence. And I'm like, Beyonce had
I
issues
know.
of confidence. So I think it shows us that we all have those moments along the path. We all may have imposter syndrome, whatever, that means for you,
Yeah.
line of work you're in, whatever industry, but you can create a character,
Yeah.
Sasha Fierce. And, I think of all Beyonce's gifts and beyond the music, I just think the way she has inspired young women is just beyond words,
It's
beyond.
It's so amazing. And I mean, and if I were to add a fourth, I mean, Beyonce is the executive for many of us, but I think she's a wonderful representation in terms of inspiration, in having people see themselves in you. And like she knows herself so deeply and so profoundly. And having that be mirrored, right, inspires people to do that as well. And I think there are many reasons I could go on and on about all the reasons
Let's
I
just talk
love
about
Beyonce.
Beyonce.
Right. This could turn into a completely
Right.
different episode.
Well,
But I do
the,
love, yeah, I love that.
the other thing I don't recall if we've talked one of our previous guests who is the most awesome, Sabrina Brown, who is just
Yes, I love her. Yes.
so she well at the time of this recording a few weeks back did the activation. I'll salute the brand for Citibank. She led the activation at the Cowboy Carter tour in Meadowlands.
Mhm.
So I think now we're months later. Maybe she's come down from that high, Sabrina. But if you're watching, we're going to tag you in this so you
Yes,
know.
we are. So we know that we fangirl over you too.
Yeah, we totally fangirl. Okay. How do you hold yourself accountable to be the best leader you can be for your followers, for those you influence, for those in your companies, 5 days a week? How do you do it?
Huh. Well, 5 days a week is funny because I think for me, leadership feels like a 7 days a week commitment. And I think it's because I just don't look at leadership through the lens of my career. I really think a lot about how I show up in my relationships, both in my family and in the spaces where people might look to me. And my biggest thing, I think, is being I think just staying grounded in the why, right? Why am I leading? What kind of impact am I trying to have? Am I creating spaces for others to rise, or am I just moving through tasks that I feel like are things leaders are supposed to do? I think a part of that is building in anchor moments to check in with myself and not just about productivity, but about alignment. So, what
Mm.
needs my attention, right? Where do I need to listen more? What is something that only I can move forward this week? And then I try to pay close attention to what's not being said because I think a big part of leadership is paying attention to what people aren't saying, right? And sometimes the feedback about how we are as leaders doesn't come through like conversations, but it comes through in what's not being said. And so that's where the presence bit comes in for me, and trying to hold myself accountable for how people feel in my presence and not just what gets done. But I think the biggest thing when I think about holding myself accountable, is leading in a way that's consistent across every part of my life, right? And that's kind of why I say the 7 days a week thing, because it's not just when I'm working. I want to know that the people closest to me, family, right, friends, team members, that they all feel as though they're getting the best version of me. And I don't want to be one way in my work and one way outside of my work. So I think again, this reality of just staying grounded in the why.
Yeah, it makes me think of actually. So I heard something from a coach I've never met who you worked at Johnson and Johnson years ago, who and it was told to me by a coaching client, and I love this. We create this myth that we have all different lives, a business life, an intimate life, a family life, or whatever. We really have one beautiful life with 14, 15 beautiful, facets, and that when anything is out of balance, when anything isn't authentic, when we're not getting fulfillment, it affects everything. And so one thing we do when we talk to coaching clients, or we explore, we have an exercise that helps them see, is there anything out of balance?
Yeah.
So it's not about everything always being excellent, but is it overall in balance? Okay. What role does EI, emotional intelligence, something we've talked about on the
Yeah.
podcast, play in leadership today, especially in communications? And how can leaders cultivate it, enhance it, get better at it?
Yeah, so I am a big, 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 big advocate that emotional intelligence isn't just a nice to have, it's like foundational. I think in communications, right, where so much of our work kind of hinges on understanding people and how they feel, what they need, and even more than that, how they want to be seen. I think the best leaders I've had the opportunity to work with and the best examples of leadership for me aren't just folks that are like good or great strategists. They're empathetic, right? They listen to people. They know how to read a room. They know how to navigate tension and hold space for people, especially I think when you're in high stakes industries or in a high stake moment. And so for me, emotional intelligence becomes even more critical. We're not just managing teams, right? We're leading through so much as leaders now. So it's not just about managing the team, it's about the industry you're in. It's about, a rapidly changing cultural landscape. It's about systemic inequities, right? So there's a lot of things that require you to have EQ. And I think when you don't have emotional intelligence, you really risk losing trust. And
Well,
trust is a big currency of leadership. And so I think emotional intelligence, and how to cultivate that for folks in the PR and comm spaces is really just asking yourself, how am I showing up? How do others experience me, right? And am I creating or contributing to an environment where people feel seen, supported, and safe to speak up? I talk a lot about care as a KPI. Because I think it's something that so many more people like. It's not something that might be like measurable by I think historical institutional metrics, but I really do think it's important. And so I think cultivating EQ means taking time for real connection, not just check-ins, but check-ins with care, right? And modeling um just vulnerability and care for your team members and being able to embrace feedback, right? Because being able to lead, I think, effectively is definitely tied to your ability to listen well.
absolutely, and so much there
Yeah.
that uh, I agree with and gets people thinking. But I would say just about every leadership skill, you can look at metrics. You can ask, you could ask people,
Mhm.
uh, Great Fatu, as a caring leader, and you could see, do how many people give you A plus, how many give you A, how many give you A minus, how many give you C. So you actually anything, am I a trusted leader? How do people rank me as trusted? So when you look at those core skills, I think we should be getting feedback and applying metrics.
Yeah.
One thing that many leaders who go through coaching find that if they get some data around themselves at the outset of the program, around those big, deep skills, listening, emotional intelligence, trust. care,
Mm.
and then they were to take that survey after a few months of coaching, they definitely would see increases. So I agree. So now that we've connected on an emotional level, what was your toughest leadership moment when you missed the mark or failed? I use failed in air quotes. And, how did you get through it? And as we ask all our guests, honest answers, please.
Yeah.
Honest answer when you really didn't bring my best as a leader.
Yeah. I mean, let me be like completely authentic. I think tough leadership moments help like happen to me every day. So when we talk about like something that stands out as the toughest, um, every day's a tough day in some capacity, right? Because I think when you're succeeding in one way, you're also missing the mark in another. And I think that's just the honest reality of leadership that we should talk about more, is that it's not clean. Success and failure are almost always sitting side by side. But if I had to name a moment that felt really defining for me, I think it would be the moment I realized that I cannot do and be everything. That no matter how capable I am or how committed I am, I'm not infinite. And that was a really tough and hard truth to sit with because I'm somebody who's used to being the bridge, right? And the builder in both my professional and personal life. So I'm the one that's holding it all together for many people. And when it comes to building this community, right, PR Girl Manifesto, I think I definitely underestimated how heavy it would become to carry it, especially when you don't have system support or honestly rest that real sustainability requires, and not just sustaining a organization, but sustaining myself, right? And admitting that to myself was tough because I will say that as a leader, sometimes my identity gets wrapped up in being somebody who can figure it all out, who can step in and who can overextend. And that's not leadership, that's survival. And I had to learn that the hard way. And so that was a really, really like tough moment for me. And so it's in not having enough capacity to, I think, take advantage of opportunities that come across, right, my desk when it comes to things for the organization. It's about not always providing my team, right, with what they might need to help us get to the next level. And I think what's helped me grow through a lot of that is kind of redefining like what success looks like to me as a leader. I really view success as sustainability. And so for me, what that leadership tough moment taught me is that I'm building something that can't rely on me being everything to everyone, right? It also means trusting my team and meaning it and not just saying I trust my team and then trying to like hold everything. And the biggest thing that is so hard for me, and I'm still working on it, is asking for help before I hit my limit. Because I will suffer in silence and then be like,
Yeah.
oh, I need help. But I think also remembering that being a leader does not mean carrying it all and knowing when to set it down. And that's been a really, really big lesson for me that was learned out of um those tough leadership moments because I have failed. Like there's things that maybe
Yeah.
people might not see, right? Like, but have been behind the scenes failures. And they've been tied to, I think, again, my capacity to be like, okay, this is not for me to carry. I need to just, to delegate. I need to trust that other people can kind of like bridge the gap as well.
So, I don't see that as a failure. And that's why I always put failure in air quotes, because if it's a milestone on the road to success and we learn from it. And I probably mentioned on the podcast before, the people who have celebrated their failures from so many different industries, walks of life, historical periods, Edison, Einstein, the Beatles,
Yeah.
Ella Fitzgerald, Oprah, and Dolly Parton, to name a few. Wouldn't that
Oh,
be a great dinner party too, right? But
please.
they
Anything
celebrate.
Dolly is, I would love to see.
Yeah, they celebrated their failures because they know they learned from them. And it goes into one of those leadership attributes, which is courage. The other thing I'd like to comment on is that, not doing that, your greatest gift as a leader is not doing it all yourself, anything but. It's giving it away and delegating and trusting, even when you're not sure they're ready, even if they're not sure they're ready, like let them go out on that trap. You've been out on the trapeze, right? Now, let the people under you go out on the trapeze. You're the safety net. We're not going to fail.
I love that.
And again, I always say, if you're delegating and truly empowering, yeah, it's a little scary for both. That's how you know you're doing it right. So something we've asked all our Taking the Lead guests for many years, but especially since January of 2025, what can executives and organizations who support diversity, equity, and inclusion goals do in an era when these efforts are under fire?
Yeah, this is such a timely question, and honestly, it's an urgent one, because we are seeing DEI being not only deprioritized but defunded, and in some cases dismantled. I am known for being somebody that says, like, I always want to be clear, if your commitment to equity only holds when it's easy or trending, then it wasn't commitment, it was convenience. I think we need more accomplices. I think people look at the word accomplices and it has negative connotation to it, but we have allies, right? We have a bunch of people who say that they're allies. We need accomplices, people who are willing to take risks, people who are willing to shift power and disrupt systems from the inside. And I know that might take a very like radical-ish tone, but I struggle with the fact that somewhere along the way, um, D and IMB when it comes to how it's used in business, right? Became a KPI and a case study, and it's really a human one. Um, we look at DNIB and we're like, okay, is it the best practice? People are concerned, but like when this stuff is scaled back, people are suffering, right? So opportunities are disappearing, harm goes unchecked, and folks are impacted, and then asked to carry that weight quietly. So when I think about what executives and organizations can do in this moment, I think recommit out loud is one. Make your values visible. I know that I've seen a lot of internal memos, but public accountability matters in a time like this. And I think protecting the people doing the work, I think it's unfortunate when we see a lot of the E&I leads become scapegoats or budget casualties. And so it's not just about, I think, the recommitting out loud, but it's the funding, it's listening, it's promoting. And I honestly think continue leading from the top. Executives should be in the room and not just cheering from the sidelines when there are wins, right? And I think if DNI isn't championed at the highest levels, then it never truly gets integrated. And I think the biggest thing again is that the cost of inaction isn't just a reputation risk, it's a human one. And so if you believe in building and being at the helm of a just and sustainable organization, it doesn't stop or start with the news cycle for an administration. It's a long-term commitment. And I think that right now, many of us are being asked if you will still continue showing up when it's hard.
Thank you so much. I mean, a few things that really resonate for me in what you just said is that it does start at the top. It does start with the leader. And also, this is very human.
Yeah.
This is a very human thing. And when we scale back, it's not just about dollars and numbers, though that is part of it,
Yeah.
but it's, who is it affecting? Who is it hurting? And I think, as many of our guests have said, it hurts your organization to not be listening to
Yeah.
all voices. All right, one last question.
Love that.
What is something about you not in your LinkedIn profile that we might find surprising?
Ooh. I think something that might surprise people on LinkedIn, but maybe not another social platform, is that I love and want to write. And I think this might be one of the first times I name that in like a professional context. Before I ever knew anything about PR or comms, before I think I embarked on what career journey this is, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write books. I wanted to write scripts.
Hmm,
I think storytelling is such a is a gift, and I've always wanted to tell stories that move people. So I love being in the calm space, but I think there's a big part of me that feels really alive when I'm writing, when I'm building worlds and like putting language to something that someone else might not have found the words for yet. So yeah, I think people might be surprised to know that I want to write, and I'm learning to say that without minimizing it. Uh, but yeah, that I probably in like 10 years, I'd love to just be a writer.
It might be a chapter two or chapter three. Let's see. Vatu, it has been such a joy having you here, as I knew all those years ago it would be. And if people want to contact you, talk about PR, talk about leadership, talk about creative writing, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I am a big fan of LinkedIn, and so please connect with me on LinkedIn under Fatou B Barry. I love meeting new people. I love to yap about topics just like this, so please don't hesitate to reach out.
That's great. I encourage all of you to do that. And if you want to get in touch with me, if you want to explore leadership, leadership coaching, agency management, business development, how to give feedback the right way, any of it, you know the things we talk about. Please reach out to me. Happy to do a complimentary leadership coaching session if that would be of value to you. Just reach out to me, KEN at jacobscomm.com. Again, KEN at jacobscomm.com. And until next time, keep on taking the lead.